Well, hello everyone, and welcome to round number 3 of this, the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, powered by EnBW Mobility Plus. My name is Connery Medic. I'm joined by the ever wonderful Paul Smith for this round of the championship as we head to basically the most famous racing circuit in Germany. We head to the Nürburgring. The short layout of the GP circuit, but the Nürburgring nonetheless here for the third round of the championship. Paul, how you doing?
Yeah, feeling good, feeling refreshed after a little bit of a week break, but we're back for the championship and certainly looking forward to what goes on here at the Nürburgring. Of course, the slightly shorter version on the sprint tracker, so definitely one to look forward to. We're going to see plenty of action out there today.
Yeah, I get that feeling as well. As we can take a look at the calendar for this season, of course, we are certainly in full swing of things right now. Of course, we've had those 2 rounds at Brands Hatch and Watkins Glen. Now we're at the Nürburgring. In a couple of weeks' time, we head to Zandvoort, then to Silverstone, and then to Monza for our final round of the season. So we're going to complete the first half of the season here today, Paul, and we can actually have a very quick look at the point situation because it is very, very telling. Look at that. Christopher Högfeldt, 160 points. And I do have some news for you coming out of last race. Jack Keithley got his race win taken away from him due to a penalty that was incurred on the formation lap, believe it or not. So therefore, Christopher Högfeldt has, under the official standings, won every single race so far this season.
Yeah, he wasn't the first man to take the checkered flag at Brands Hatch. At the last round at Watkins Glen, should I say, sorry, in the first race, but he's been granted that win due to that penalty. 49-point lead over Bence Bonke. That's absolutely crazy at this portion of the season. We really, if you're somebody else in this championship hunt, you really need to be hoping that Christopher does trip up and have a bad round just to bring themselves back into this fight. But Banki, Yovsky, Keithley, they're all in that hunt, so to speak, and then it's pretty much everybody else fighting over the scraps.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case, and that is absolutely crazy to me that we see someone running away with the race lead this early on in the championship. It is pretty crazy stuff, and of course, you know, it does translate over somewhat into the actual teams championship because we can have a look at that now, and we see Högfeldt and Ottaviani from that Virtual Drivers by TX3 team top of the order. Not too much though compared to Williams Esports behind, but still. Virtual Drivers by TX3 on top in both championships.
Yeah, just what's that? 5 points between first and second place in the teams championship, with a further 3 points back to the Williams XR8G team. So we're seeing this strange situation of seeing teams having to work together to try and win this team's championship. So it's definitely quite a unique situation that we find here, but we're seeing it a much more competitive championship in the teams championship.
Before we get into our third qualifying session, well, first qualifying of the session, if you know what I mean. Let's have a look at the Pirelli pole position award. Of course, this is the pole position for the second race in each race weekend. Christopher Högfeldt's gotten himself pole position. Jack Keithley has gotten himself pole position. So we could might see a third different pole position in race 2 here today, given the right set of circumstances. But we'll hear more about that a little bit later on, because we do have the first of our 2 qualifying sessions going on right now. If you're unfamiliar with the format here in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, then don't worry, because I will tell you. We'll get ourselves our first qualifying session that will set the grid for the first race here, the sprint race in this championship. And of course, that will be over and done with inside of 15 minutes, and then we'll be able to get ourselves a second qualifying session going. And then we'll have our endurance race of 30 minutes where the drivers will have to complete a mandatory pit stop, changing both tyres and fuel. So that's the situation here today as drivers get onto their opening portions of their first hot lap.
And rather worryingly for the grid of drivers out here, Moritz Lerner was actually saying on social media that this is a track where the McLaren can fight for a win. So could we see Moritz Lerner finding himself up towards the front of the field? So definitely some warning shots being fired on social media before today's event. There he is out there for Door Esports. Previous champion, multiple champion. It's not been his season, I think it's fair to say, and that McLaren doesn't seem to be suiting at least the first 2 rounds of the championship. Here, Nürburgring, a bit more technical, a bit tight and twisty around here, could potentially favour that car.
He's got purple through the first 2 sectors here on his first flying lap. You see those times start to come through on the left-hand side of your screen. Enray Chian getting himself up provisional pole position, but what's the lap time going to be for Moritz Lerner? It is fastest of everyone, 124.736. So looks like he's going to continue on with another lap here, Paul. So just take us through this shortened Nürburgring circuit.
Yep, through turn 1, tight hairpin. Get yourself over to the middle of the track for turn number 2, this left-hander. Let the car just run out wide, using the curb in the AstroTurf before hitting the brakes again into turn number 3. You compromise your exit through this one to open up turn 4. Carry as much speed as you can through there, using all the runoff and then some. And then here's where it cuts through. Normally, the Grand Prix route, you carry on straight on, but there, we turn right here, through the cut through, then onto the back half of the Grand Prix circuit. Over to the right hand side, left-hander, get this nice and right, quickly over to the left then for Warsteiner, the right-hander. Carry the speed out of this corner then, because you're taking the speed all the way through this fast right-hand kink, should I say, at Van Bergen, and then on towards the NGK chicane, onto the brakes, nice and hard. Really tight chicane with the sausage curbs on the insides of each one. Keep it over to the left-hand side there to finish your lap. But unfortunately, he decides, you know what? I need a new set of fresh tyres.
So he does take the toe back to pit lane, but that was all of the track bar 1 corner that you were able to describe for us there, Paul. So thank you very, very much for that. And well, we got ourselves about 5 minutes left in this session. While we were talking about that lap, Marco Pajic goes fastest, the 124.656 there with the Porsche. So all the cars that weren't quite as good in those first 2 rounds are starting to creep up towards the top, it seems here. You can't see them on the left-hand side. We don't have the manufacturer logos, unfortunately, but we do have a Porsche in provisional pole, and we have 2 McLarens, that's Lohner and Hasse, P2 and P3, and then we have the Bentley of Fiduci in P4, and the Audi of Siggy in P5. So we saw BMW dominant for the first 2 rounds of the season here, Paul, but at least in this first half of this first qualifying session, it seems like the other manufacturers now are getting into their stride.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw from that on board with Moritz Lerner that it's a twisty circuit. There's not really too much high-speed sections around here. You've got the back section after the cut through and the start and finish straight, which are your top speed areas. Everywhere else, it's all a bit tight and twisty and technical, but suiting other cars that maybe just didn't have that run through the medium to high speed corners like we had at Watkins, Glen and Brands Hatch as well. So Högfeldt, though, if I'm Christopher right now, I just want to have a strong round here today. If you're not feeling that you can get the win, then just get yourself some good points, consolidate your lead in the championship, and hope that others don't really score that many against you. I mean, when you consider his championship rivals, they're all behind him in qualifying right now, are all his championship rivals, so he's in a comfortable position here.
Yeah, Högfeldt, well, he's done most of the legwork already so far this season, picking up 4 race wins from our first 4 races. Of course, 3 of those were coming across the line in first, but of course the steward's giving him 1 more due to a penalty to Jack Keithley last time out. It's a very, very comfortable position for him to be in, because if he didn't get that huge points margin at this point in the season, maybe he'll be a little bit more worried that the other manufacturers and his closest competitors in those other cars are starting to gain on him, because he has that huge buffer, that huge safe zone to work with, that he can have a bad result and it not be too detrimental. But of course, you do have to be careful in saying that, because sometimes you get on a run of bad form.
You certainly do, and the the problem is, if you do start in the pack, so to speak, as Moritz Lerner just goes back into first place with another fastest lap, so the times are still there in the track. But yeah, if you're starting in the pack, so to speak, you know, even third row, fourth row of the grid, you can get involved in shenanigans in the first lap or two of the race, and that can cost you dearly for the second going forward the rest of the event. So fortunately, not like last season, we've got 2 separate qualifying sessions, which means that we don't have that inverted grid. So if you had a bad first race here now, you get a reset effectively for race number 2 and a second chance.
Yeah, you do, and that is so valuable compared to last season, because we saw so many times last season where the drivers would have a poor race number 1, and then they fall down the order, and then they get quote unquote punished for that by starting towards the back in race 2 as well. So they have to continue on that recovery drive through the endurance race. No, you're thrown a lifeline, so to speak, with another qualifying session to get yourself a more representative position on the starting grid for race 2. And at least that is good from my perspective. Of course, there's a certain kind of excitement that comes from reverse grid races that you perhaps wouldn't get anywhere else, with drivers being put out of position and some surprise winners. I guess it's a little bit more fair overall that we get this second quali.
Yeah, it's certainly. Yes, you've said it spot on there. You know, get that reverse grid, it can just throw up some crazy races. But even with the endurance race that we have here on the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, you still get some tremendous excitement and opportunities for drivers out there. Final few lap times coming in across the line, and Jack Keithley to 5th place ahead of Högfeldt.
Yeah, that is very important with regards to championship situation there. We're not expecting major changes in the qualifying order, so this should be how they line up. Moritz Lerner, pole position for him. So that is a third different pole position. They used to take the pole position award, but of course that only really counts for a second race. So we'll see if that carries through to qualifying 2. But we've got Marco Pajic 2nd place, Florian Hasse 3rd, Gianmarco Fiducci 4th, Jack Keithley starts 5th, Siggy in 6th, and, well, Högfeldt, our championship leader, in 7th. So a little bit of change towards the bottom there. Emre Can P8, Ben Spanky P9, and Tim Yarshell rounding out the top 10 in qualifying. This is the first qualifying session for the first race, of course. We'll get ourselves a refresh of it for the second event. But as we will head on over to the second page, here's Leonard Kripner, Isaac Price, Ilika Vidusky, Ayhan Yagoski, and Michael Rachel bringing things down to P15. Dornaden, Brzezinski, Gassner, Barner, and Pfeiffer rounding out the top 20. And then those towards the very back of the order, Pinces, Kunze, and et al. As we get ourselves into the gridding procedure for race number 1. Of course, rolling start. We explain it every single race. Of course, we had a little bit of extra race time to make sure that we can get a manual rolling start done. So this brings me on to a good point, though, Paul. Remember how Keithley got punished for going too fast on the formation lap under the single file procedure for the previous event, which meant that he got a 5-second penalty and then lost his race win. Drivers will have read the post-race report on that and just will have to remind themselves, or a teammate will remind them, just say, okay, just take it chill. Don't go too quickly here on the formation lap. You don't want to have a penalty before the race has even begun.
Yeah, it's certainly it puts you in a situation which you can throw away a good result, and we've seen how close this championship is as well in terms of the driver's pace. So it very much is a case of that a 5-second penalty costs you huge. What was that, 6th place that Jack ended up in the official results from the first race at Watkins Glen? From a 5-second penalty, he won the race, but it's just incredibly close, this championship, and we say it each and every round of this championship is just some of the best sim racers out there. Who, as we've got a driver taken to the grass towards the rear of the field, but you got some of the best sim racers out there here today competing in this championship. So no wonder that they're so close together, because they're so evenly matched. Yeah,
it is absolutely crazy close, and that's what we've come to expect from this series. We've been well, at least I've been commentating it for a couple of years at this point. Of course, you joined me for the previous season there, Paul, as well. It's always been this close. Yes, there are usually the familiar names at the very top of the order, like Maurice Lohner, for example, who's currently in pole position right now. He's always been up there. He's got a couple of championships under his belt, so that's not entirely a surprise. But of course, we have seen drivers come through. We saw Högfeldt come through in the early portions of the season and score 4 race wins. You know, that would have never been on the cards, really, in the previous season. So we are seeing this this different talent come through. We had Emre Can in that support series that we did last year in the GT4s. He got himself a slot in this series by winning that out. So now he's starting 8th place in this race. So it does show that those drivers that perhaps we don't know so much of, not saying that Xian is one of them, but they certainly have the possibility of getting themselves stuck in.
Certainly can, and it's a great platform to put yourself on and really give yourself a great opportunity to do things in front of some of the big teams and the team bosses, and even show to your sponsors, look, this is what we can do. But drivers are lined up side by side, so we're getting ready for the start here, Connery.
Event 3 sprint race here at the Nürburgring for the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, powered by EnBW Mobility Plus. We are live here on the Traction GG channel as well. Thank you very much for joining us for this one. This should be a whole bunch of fun as we're about to go sprint racing here at the Nürburgring. They get the signal from race control and we're underway. There's a bit of a squeeze towards the pit wall. One of the Bentleys getting very close to that as they head their way down in towards turn number 1 for the first time. Page on the outside of everything. But Lohner has maintained the race lead. He's got his teammate behind him. Was that 4 wide back in the pack there or something? That was absolutely silly there, but everyone's able to work their way through unscathed here as Page and Keithley are fighting side by side for 3rd place as Fiducci sticks his nose in there in that Bentley. Down the inside becomes the outside for turn number 4 for Team Fordzilla, around the outside of the Williams Esports car of Jack Keithley, but can't quite get anything done there. The battle will have to continue here as Fiducci's looking desperately for a way past.
Yeah, but he can't find the space then, so he's going to have to slot in to the line then. And it showed just through the arena section just how you can go 2-3 wide through there on the opening lap, and you switch places multiple times. We're seeing names moving up and down on our timing tower here as well further down. I mean, Isaac Price is way down in 18th place in the opening of this race. Had a poor qualifying, so he's found himself further back into the chicane for the first time. People, well, can they get themselves sorted out? Yes, they can. Although there's one car off at the back there.
Yep, there is. I think that might have been Jonas Vanna. Also Leon Rudinger involved in that one as well as we head across the line to complete lap number 1. The order is Lohner, Hassa, Pejic, Keithley and Fiducci as your top 5. Are there going to be any big lunges down in towards turn number 1? I'm seeing a couple of signs of it. Yarshall has to try and go defensive here, or rather Högfeldt has to go defensive over Yarshall as Yarshall sticks his way down the insides there, and well, they'll continue door to door, won't they? Coming through the Mercedes-Benz arena, Yarshall behind Högfeldt at the moment. Krimpner looking to get himself involved in the BMW behind as well. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty common feature down in towards turn number 1 for the majority of today.
Yes, the main outbraking spot is turn number 1 then through there. But it's great to see the Mercedes up there fighting it out with everybody else. I think the balance of performance has really worked out for this round of the championship. So, yeah. The admins of this series, they do try and get that balance absolutely right. Some places it works better than others. But right now we can see a really good mix of cars up there at the front. 2 McLarens, Porsche, BMW, Bentley, Audi, Bentley, BMW, Mercedes. This is absolutely incredible in your top 10. And again, Yarshall looking to the inside. Can he make that move stick? Well, he's going to be slower off the corner.
Yeah, he is, and you see the snaking coming down the pit straight already here in this one. It's hard to get a good TV angle, the nose on angle, not exactly showing us a lot here in this one as we see Högfeldt and Yarshall continue on the fight into the braking zone for turn number 1. Yarshall slips himself ahead now. He's gained that position over Högfeldt, and now Högfeldt has to be careful not to slip back too far. Of course, even though he has a bit of a points advantage, it is probably an understatement in the championship right now. He still needs to be very conscious of how many points he's losing, because, you know, it might be the case that this is the only round where the other cars come to the forefront, or it might be that those first 2 rounds were so BMW focused that now Högfeldt has to be in damage control for the rest of the season.
I mean, to be honest, right now you just continue to fight on and drive how you have been fighting all season. There's no point changing how you're driving out there, and just try and get what you can out of it. Meanwhile, Siggy under pressure from Bent Banky, one of your championship contenders. He's trying into the NGK chicane, non-forthcoming. Of course, points all the way down to 21st in this championship, so he would have to. Högfeldt would have to drop down a lot of places to have it really start affecting his championship run. Here it's just damage limitation, I think, here today.
Yeah, I think that's the case as well. Banky has to really capitalise on this now. He's got Tim Yarshall between him and Högfeldt behind, so gaining a fair few points as a result of that. Remember, Banky is P2 in the championship for the moment, so it's important for him to really be getting on with things today and trying to capitalise on that advantage that he's got with the balance performance back to Christopher Högfeldt right now. Of course, the other drivers in the championship, Anja Jovski's in 3rd place in the championship. He's down the order somewhat here now, though. He's down in 15th place, and of course Jack Keithley also benefiting quite nicely from the current balance performance in this race as well. So that's Keithley up into 4th place, which is, I was going to say benefit from the balance performance, but he is the highest placed BMW at the moment, and is doing relatively well amongst all the different manufacturers here at the very front.
Yeah, Jack's really doing a good job pedaling that BMW and trying his best at the front of the field. He's going to have a lot of pressure from Fiorducci though behind, because of course we saw Fiorducci try and make his way past on lap 1. He can maybe use the grunt of that Bentley to go down the start and finish straight. Really, he needs to try and force a mistake out of Jack Keithley. Now that's easier said than done, is that, because we saw, especially at Watkins Glen, how it took a strategy call in race number 2 for people to get past Keithley, but in race number 1 he just could not be shifted at all, good Keithley. But he has dropped back a little bit from the front 3 right now.
Yeah, maybe that he can't really hold on to the front 3 and is starting to back up everyone behind him, and there's starting to be a little bit of a train developing. Not as tight of a cluster as we're used to seeing, but this goes down any longer. Of course, Fiorducci will get a little bit more frustrated up behind the BMW, feeling like he needs to get past in that Bentley to potentially challenge the front 3, but the front 3 are about, let's just see, they're about 1.7-ish seconds ahead, further down the road at the moment. So with 8 minutes remaining, not really inside the realms of possibility. So potentially this might be a fight for P4 and back in amongst this little grouping here in the front 3. Well, they'll have to settle their differences amongst themselves.
Well, I can tell you that the front 2, they're pretty much happy being line astern as they are, because the 2 teammates that are currently sat in 1st and 2nd place, so they're looking really good for this round in that McLaren. And Payich, we only saw him really shine in 1 round last season, of course. He's finally got a bit of pace in that Porsche, and he's in 3rd place. But yeah, this Jack Keithley right now is a little bit the cork in the bottle, because you look at him, he's got 4 cars behind him immediately, but not that far back is the rest of the field. Yarshall, Högfeldt, Krippner, Brzezinski, Gastner, Chian, everybody else seems to be in this queue behind Yarshall right now.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case, and well, we'll see if there's any flashpoint in this entire train, which will trigger a lot of side-by-side battling. I'm just having a little bit of a look further down the order, because it does seem like Emre Cihan door-to-door with Alexander Dornaden. So that's a funny little rhyme that you can do there, as Dornaden around the outside, down towards the inside for the right as they start to descend the hill. And, well, getting a little bit squirrely off the corner there. Emre Cihan still in the position to challenge up in towards the NGK chicane. But look at his wing in his rear view mirror, though, because Johan Jojowski had a big run of speed on the way down there, and now through the NGK chicane. Can't quite get anything done right there, but it seems like things are bunching up here for SCP-13 and back.
That chicane, it's not the tighter version of the chicane. It's really difficult to actually get any moves done through there because it is pretty much one line there. And if you're under pressure, speaking of being under pressure, got battling in front there as well. So Krippner and Högfeldt, in fact, they're duking it out. Oh, Krippner losing out a little bit there, and Högfeldt getting his shoulders out a little bit there, and Gassner trying to take advantage along with Brzezinski. So this is definitely an intense battle here at the bottom of your top 10. But yeah, that NGK chicane is not the best overtaking opportunity, you'd think. Oh, tight 90-degree right, left hand into the right of the chicane. That's a perfect, hard braking opportunity. But reality is that people can easily defend that and then just keep it slow through the chicane to get the run out of the corner.
Yeah, it's looking on first look, you might think it's an opportunity. It's a heavy braking zone into a tight sequence of corners. Like you can potentially sling one down the inside there, but yeah, it's deceiving in the fact that there's only really a single line through these corners, and if you do try and go too wide through there, one, you're slowing each other up massively, or two, you're going to run each other off the road basically. That's the situation through there. So. It's not the ideal move. Of course, the preferred way of doing things is the slipstream down the pit straight in towards turn number 1, but even that is not a guarantee because you have the Mercedes-Benz Arena where the advantage can switch back and forth as Högfeldt continuing to defend now from Krippner behind the two BMWs.
Yeah, and went defensive a little bit earlier. Held that inside line, didn't really have to worry about any move being made by Krippner that time. We're already into the final 5 minutes of this race. This race has flown by here in this opening race of the evening. And there's just been action absolutely everywhere here. I'm loving this.
Yeah, it's been great, and this is what the Nürburgring tends to deliver. Wealth of overtaking, wealth of potential overtaking opportunities, shall we say. Of course, on the full GP level, maybe a little bit more, especially with the run down in towards Dunlop. But yeah, it's been an intriguing one so far. I'm not expecting too much to happen at the front of the field, though, unless Payich wants to get stuck in with the two McLarens here, because I doubt Hasse will be pressuring Lohner too much, and of course, he's not really in the position to pressure him at the moment, being over half a second back, so he's probably more focused on what Payich is doing in that Porsche behind. Of course, Payich is the only Porsche in this field, and representing the German brands here. Well, there's many German brands in this race, but Payich the only Porsche, and well, I guess he's gotten rewarded for once for picking it.
Certainly has, and I mean, he's putting the pressure on, but I don't think there's any moves really on at the moment. I think the front two are able to just hold on and keep a big enough gap that he's not really a worry, but he is there as a little bit of a nuisance between them. But still, Högfeldt holding on desperately for this 9th place. He's determined not to lose any more positions here, Connery, because 9th to 10th, that's a 2-point drop there. So, as you get further down the standings, those points, it just really exacerbates if your championship rivals, like a Jack Keithley, who's in 4th, are going to score well. Bence Banki, 7th place as well right now. So, it's only 4 points difference between Banki and Högfeldt right now in terms of the championship there. So, it's not really a big issue, but still not want to fall back any further.
Yeah, he won't, and you got to think long game in this situation. Those points might be quite helpful at the very end of the season, just in case it gets close. But we're having a look towards the front here, and we're seeing Hasse being forced to go a little defensive in towards turn number 1. So Payich starting to turn up the heat now. The pack behind have also tightened up a bit, not door to door, but nose to nose, nose to bumper. So things, as we head on towards our final couple of laps, 2 more. So it's not completely desperation moments just yet, but we can be in for a a pretty enthralling final lap if we get some good runs in towards T1.
Certainly could be. Kevin Siggy's looking very, his body language of the car is looking very aggressive right now. Looks like he wants to make at least one more position up here, so definitely he's giving it a good go on the Fordzilla driver in front of him. But right now, Moritz Lerner, he's got a good healthy lead, and Florian Hasse is the one under pressure in second place as they head into the chicane for the penultimate time. One more lap to go here. He's just not got quite the run out the chicane there as PH. Certainly it's the run through here onto the start and finish straight, which is crucial.
It absolutely is. So crossing the line, one more lap to go here in the sprint race of the third event of the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. PH not quite going to be close enough to make anything happen down in towards T1 this time around. And, well, having a look further back, there was a little look to the inside from Kevin Siggy over Gianmarco Fiducci, but he's not going to commit to anything just yet either. Of course, they are very much running out of time and not too many opportunities a little bit later on here, especially with everyone still not quite in the place where they'll be able to send one down the inside at any point. So it looks likely that this will be finishing in the order is currently Barcelona. Of course, he's been needing this very good result for quite a while. He hasn't gotten this season off to the correct start whatsoever, largely due to the differences in the balance of performance from the McLaren compared to the rest of the field. But it seems like the Nürburgring is where the McLarens have come alive. It looks like it's going to be a McLaren 1-2, unless PH has anything to say up in towards the NGK chicane. He's gotten a good run in that Porsche, but he's just going to conserve his race. He's going to stick behind for now. He'll stalk his prey quite closely through the NGK chicane, but unless there's a mistake from Hasse, P2 is his. We look towards the front as Moritz Lohner, multiple-time champion in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. He picks up his first win of the season here in 2022. The sprint race at the Nürburgring is Moritz Lohner's. Everyone else across the line, of course, Jack Heathley P4, Fiducci P5, Siggy P6, and Markey in P7 today. Högfeldt, he did hold on to that P9 from Krippner. He's in P9, gets himself quite a bit of points. Of course, not his goal is to not lose too many over the course of today. He has a comfortable buffer in terms of P1 in the championship. But yeah, that was a pretty decent race there, Paul. Of course, managed very well from the front by the two-door Esports McLarens.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and PH, you just couldn't quite match them for overall pace across the race. Jack Keithley seems a distant fourth place there ahead of Fiducci with Siggy and Banky, and Yarshell actually closed up to that battle towards the end of the race. Högfeldt and Krickner, I mean, they were fighting hammer and tongs all the way through that race there in 9th and 10th place. One of the big names for me that finished further down was Isaac Price. You look at him there on the results, 17th. He will not be happy with how things are going in this opening race.
Yeah, not at all. This could have been a big opportunity, but sort of caught a little bit further down the order there as we look at the very back of the field. Dinje, Vanna, Günzer, Wittvoets, Carter, Notowski, Barner, Rudiger, was usually all hoping for a little bit more in race number 2 here today. But we'll get ourselves set up for qualifying 2 in just a couple of moments' time. Hello, I'm Connery Maddock. I'm joined by Paul Smith for the commentary here. Again, a very well-run race here at the Nürburgring, especially for those Door Esports McLarens at the very front. Of course, if they're able to repeat their performance here in the second qualifying session, then they're looking pretty set for a very good points haul here today. Remember, because it's not just the Drivers' Championship that we have to be concerned about. We have to worry about the Teams' Championship as well, and with a 1-2 finish from Door Esports there, that is really going to work out in their favour. And for a team, that was right at the very bottom of the team's points order coming into today. They only had 17 points, and they've gained a whole bunch. You could probably do the mathematics just in that first sprint race.
Yeah, they went and gained themselves 74 points just in that one race there. So that really shows you how a 1-2 can really help out your team in the championship. And I mean, I'm just watching as the admins of the series are busy filling out their point spreadsheet at the moment to get us our up-to-date standings. But I mean, Moritz, he'll be happy to find himself at the front of the field. As I said, he'd warned people on social media that this was a round that he could win in the McLaren, and he certainly proved that here in this opening race. Can he get a back-to-back? That's what he'll be aiming for at the second race. But I think Florian Hasser will be saying, "Hey, come on, share a bit of the love here. Yeah, I want a piece of the action at the top of the standings as well in race number 2."
Well,
Qualifying again, we've got that unknown of another qualifying session, and we've seen in the previous 2 rounds of the championship how that has really mixed up the grid for the second race, giving people that second opportunity.
It really has. Who knows what could happen in this second session? It's about to get underway in about a minute's time. We can bring qualifying 2 coverage to you. Of course, this race actually works a little bit differently compared to the sprint race. We have double the length, so 30 minutes, and the drivers will have to complete a scheduled stop. So, and it's a full pit stop as well, fuel and tyres. The tyres are the requirement as well, so you can't play any shenanigans with not taking tyres. They have to be bolted onto the car. Of course, that opens up some strategic options. Of course, you know, we've talked about this many times over the course of not only this season, but last season as well, Paul. A lot of drivers preferring to come down in as fast as possible to try and get the a maximum undercut on those drivers ahead, and some taking the opposite side of the coin and going very long and trying to make a hard charge through the field in the last few laps of the race. What do you think is going to be the situation here, especially given that that opportunity in towards turn number 1 is so big for overtaking?
It is certainly a big opportunity down into turn 1 and through the entire Mercedes arena. Let's not write that off either. We saw last time at Watkins Glen that Christopher Högfeldt managed to work that strategy perfectly and came out the pits right as Jack Keithley was there. So it was really intriguing to see how that. Sorry, it was Keithley who came out the pits with Högfeldt just coming round. So it's interesting to see how that strategy play can work out. If you're the leader of the race and you've got somebody, say, a second behind you, they pit first, you have to react straight away. You cannot afford to wait for their tyres to then lose that edge in performance, because by that time they've been lapping half a second, 3/4 of a second faster for 3-4 laps. So it's not the longest of laps round here either. So it's going to take a little bit longer for that initial edge, that initial bite in the tyre drop off.
Yep, it is. That's what we usually see here as well. I'm super intrigued as to what the tyre performance of the McLarens in particular are like towards the end of their stint. See if they they have a whole bunch of performance in the first 15 minutes of their stint, but then or rather the first 10 minutes, shall we say, of the stint, and then maybe towards the very end, they'll start to fall off a little bit more. But we do have qualifying underway for you now, as we'll get the 3 wide formation on the way in towards turn number 1. Why not? Let's move the pink the BMWs that are trying to do it out here on the outlap. But of course, the crucial thing here in the qualifying, get yourself into your own space, but also it helps to have a little bit of a slipstream body ahead of you, and that helps considering, it helps to get that managed considering that the drivers are all paired up anyway in their teams.
I was wondering if somebody was doing a cosplay of Gerhard Berger in the Portuguese Grand Prix in the early 90s. I saw them firing out the pit lane and straight across the track into the wall. So not the best pit exit there, that's for sure. But they'll find themselves into a bit of a gap when they sort themselves out and get back out onto the track. But yeah, it's this funny one. You want a bit of space in qualifying, but at the same point, you also want a little bit of a drafting partner to give you that little bit of an extra speed boost with the slipstream. But you don't want to be too close, because with these cars, they are aero dependent. They do rely on their aerodynamic grip, and so you want that little bit of slipstream for top speed, but you also want the grip through the corners.
Really do. It's always a tricky predicament in qualifying sometimes. Some drivers prefer qualifying, some drivers prefer getting themselves involved in the race straight away. It's of course you need to be very good at both to be on the top of your game, but there's some drivers that feel that one lap pace perhaps not as at such a high level compared to their actual race times and of course their race craft as well, which is the important thing. So there are some drivers that you'd see qualify a little bit further down the order, but all of a sudden we're seeing them making all the passes during the race. And of course there's the opposite as well, where someone qualifies really well, but they can't keep the pack behind them.
Yeah, it's incredible how things can work out where you get a good qualifying lap in, you find yourself up in the top 5, top 6, and then you just get into the race and your race pace just isn't matching up to what you did in qualifying, and you start having to defend like crazy, you slow each other down, and before you know it, you're heading backwards. So definitely you do want to just try and work things out, make sure it works in your favour, and get yourself a good position in qualifying, and then look at that strategy play and look at how that can work as learner once again. Fastest on your timing screen, but only just ahead of Kevin Siggy.
Yeah, and well, Siggy, of course, we know how strong of a driver Siggy can be, not only in RaceRoom competition, but in any sim that you decide to put him behind the wheel of a car in. He finds some way to go fast. But of course, you know, picking the Audi coming into this one, he is the one of 2 Audis in this entire session. The other Audi is Adam Pinces, a little bit further down the order. But Siggy, 11 thousandths of a second slower than Lona, as Monkey will split the two of them right down the middle, pretty much. 6 thousandths of a second behind Lona's fastest time so far.
It just always amazes me how close. I mean, you look at that, the top 4 are covered by 18 thousandths of a second right now. It's just absolutely incredible how tight this field is. But of course, plenty of qualifying left. There's still 6 minutes remaining here. You could possibly get a couple of runs because it is quite a short lap around this sprint version of the Nürburgring. So definitely the driver's going to be pushing. Moritz Lerner, it was a purple first sector, but only by 2 thousandths. He lost about 1/10.5 in the middle sector, so maybe not quite a spectacular lap this one compared to his pole lap at the moment. Although they say that, he goes a little bit quicker, but not as fast as his teammate Hasse.
Yeah, Hasse towards the very top of the order by about 1/100th of a second on his teammate. So things so close at the top. It's the front, well, rounding it down for Siggy, we've got the front 4 within 2/10ths of a second. That is 200ths of a second, excuse me, as it's the front 7 cars that are within 1/10th of a second. So that's how close things are in qualifying at the moment, and well, they have the potential to get even closer later on in the sessions. Drivers coming across the line to start more flying laps here at the moment. That's what we're seeing, as we've seen the second of the 2 flying laps for most people come through already. Drivers that, yeah, Page. Whoa, that was a lap.
Yeah, Page, I just saw that come up as you were talking, and yeah, finds himself at the top of the standings in that Porsche. Looked like a good race pace car, if I'm honest, and you could keep it with the McLarens in that first race. So if he could get himself a pole position, that puts him in a very good spot. But Moritz Lerner, he's about to start a lap. Kevin Siggy at the moment isn't setting any personal bests.
Yeah, so not looking like a great lap there. We're right on board with this lap, though, with Moritz Lerner. He doesn't have any slipstream help on this particular lap. In fact, he's basically all on his own there. Of course, he's about 1 pit straight away from the next car. So Lerner, this is just him, our three-time ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship winner. Just up against the Nürburgring in his own McLaren here, as it's about 17 thousandths of a second to gain to get himself back up onto provisional pole position here at the end of the second qualifying session. Of course, this is important as well, considering the Pirelli pole position award. Neither Page nor Hasse nor Lerner have gotten themselves pole positions just yet, so they will be our 3rd difference pole position sitters. Ben Sparky goes to the top of the order then, 27 thousandths of a second back to Marco Page, and well, Lerner, well, he's responded somewhat. He goes 600ths of a second faster through sector 1. What's his sector 2 time like then? as he heads through Van Bogen. It's a very short sector 3 here at the Nürburgring, let's just say that. That's another purple time from Moritz Lohner. He's on a flyer here in the McLaren. He has no help ahead of him with regards to the slipstream either. This is just Lohner all by his own hand, heading his way through the final corner. Is it a pole position for our multiple-time champion? Coming up towards and across the line, it is pole position for Moritz Lohner. That is an incredible time, 1.5 tenths of a second faster than what Banky was able to pull out.
And he did that with no slipstream as well. He did that all on his own. And as I said, sometimes you can actually get a better lap time if you're on your own rather than sitting in somebody's slipstream, because you're not getting that understeer from the aero wash of the car in front. So Kevin Siggy, he's going to have one final attempt. Page not improving in sector 2. Personal best in sector 1 for him in that Porsche. But what a lap from Moritz Lohner. It was a great one to be on board with him.
I'm glad I decided to go on board with the full length of that one. That was a masterclass by Moritz Lohner to go provisional pole position at the moment. Of course, we do have a couple of minutes left of the session, so if someone has an absolutely mega lap here, then potentially he might be challenged. But Lohner's down on the pit lane. He's not feeling that he can do anything else to improve that, and I don't blame him. Maybe one of his teammates would have liked the help from the slipstream, but there we go. Lohner thinks he's done.
I've seen that backfire on people in the past. I was at the Belgian Grand Prix in 2013 when Paul de Resta found himself on provisional pole position. They parked the car and everyone else did one extra lap and it put him down the grid, did that one. So it can be a dangerous game to play, but that was a special lap from Moritz.
So takes the toe back to pit lane, feeling like he cannot improve on that lap. Page still out there with 55 seconds left to go. The results will show a little early as it does in here in RaceRoom. But we will track his progress. P3 for now. Again, a personal best through Sector 1 as Kevin
Siggy.
Yeah, Siggy up into P2, 76 thousandths of a second behind Lohner. We'll wait for this session to run down. There is Lohner's time at the very top. 1:24.507, and well, we'll wait for the rest of the runners to come through to see if that will be beaten in this situation. Moritz Lohner pole position with Kevin Siggy P2, Ben Spanky P3, and Marco Pejich in P4. Florian Hasse P5 with Emre Cihan P6, Ilhan Yovsky P7 with Jack Keithley P8, Leonard Kripner in P9 and Nikodem Wisniewski in P10. Bunky's heading his way across the line now to finish his lap. I don't think it was looking like a very good one. Yeah, he just takes the toe back to the pit lane. So these are your official starting order for race 2. Christopher Högfeldt down in P11 with Max Pfeiffer P12. Michael Raschel P13, Fiducci P14, Dornaden 15th, Barner, Yarshel, Price, Brzezinski, Gastner rounding out the top 20. And then those starting at the back, Rudinger, Carton, Pinches, Ottaviani, Kunze, Digne, Dotowski, and Wittberg down to your P28 and final starting position here today. So that was a pretty tense qualifying session, wasn't it? What a that was, like I said, an absolute masterclass from Moritz Lohner in the McLaren, going a tenth and a half faster than everyone else. Especially within the context, Paul, of everyone beating each other just by 100th, the thousandths of a second. And then he goes in and just wipes the floor of everything with everyone with a lap time a tenth and a half faster than everyone else at that point. That was a big statement.
It was a big statement, absolutely. But Kevin Siggy turned around and said, okay, it wasn't quite pole position, but I'm up there with you, Moritz. And that Audi is looking quick around here this round. So Kevin seems a bit more comfortable in the car out there on the track. Don't worry, everybody, we're not missing the start. We've got a rolling start, so the drivers will drive away and follow in single file to get themselves to get ready for the start of this one. But great opportunity for Moritz Lohner to get a back-to-back win here today. He'll be hoping to get that type of result. But Siggy, Bunky, Pejich, they'll all be hoping for some moves and some good results here in this race.
Yep, it will be. They've got to capitalise on the good fortune with regards to the balance performance here today. Making their cars just a little bit better than the BMWs, which have slid down the order a little bit Of course, still very competitive. Jack Keithley showed that, especially in race number 1. He can still get up there and lay some punches down, but not as absolutely dominant as it was in our first 2 events of the season. So that's the situation there. Of course, it's a thing that's, well, not only sim racing has to deal with, but the real world as well, with regards to which car is strongest at any particular track, because you know, in an ideal world, everything will be absolutely equal and there will be no differences whatsoever in all the cars that matter in terms of lap time, but that's simply not reality. And, you know, it's something that's reflected in the real world as well. It would be a bit boring if all these cars look different, but we're absolutely identical. You know, I like those individual characters of the cars.
Yeah, and different cars have different strengths at different tracks, so that's where the job of the administrators of the championship really have a tricky job of trying to match the cars as best as they possibly can. And generally, they do a very good job of it as well. But, yep, you can see drivers lining up 2 by 2 by 2. Cars going off in the grass there in the background, but we're getting set for the start here, Connery.
And we absolutely are. So, the 30 minutes endurance race of the 3rd event of the season in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship about to get underway here at the Nürburgring. We're very thankful that you're able to join us for this one. We're about to go 30 minutes of racing. Very long hold as they roll across the starting spots, but now we get the signal. We go green here at the Nürburgring. Loner immediately all the way to the pit wall to try and defend from hard charges behind, as you see Marco Pejic on the outside of a 3-wide situation for P2 coming in towards turn number 1 for the first time. Ben Spanky 2nd place, Kevin Siggy 3rd, Emre Cihan has capitalized on all that. He's got himself up into 4th places. It's a big cluster here outside the podium spots. They're still going 3 wide with Emre Cihan involved on driver's right-hand side. He falls in behind. Pejic able to get his way through on that one unscathed and ahead. But what a chaotic start.
Well, check the paint on those cars, because there's going to be quite a bit considerably rubbed off. That's for sure. We've got multiple cars dropping down the order, so there's been an instant further back with Pfeiffer as one of those drivers. But it was true elbows out. Rugby style action out there. It was brutal, it was hard, but generally also fair.
Yeah, it was, as well, as we head our way up in towards the NGK chicane for the first time in this event. And well, you simply have to get yourself single file through here. Of course, you can look to try and get the drive off the corner and make something happen, not necessarily for the final corner, but you can carry a bit more momentum through and maybe make something happen across the start-finish line for the first time in this race. At the end of lap number 1, then on to lap number 2. Things, well, we're chaotic, but at least clean at the very front. Högfeldt feeling the need to go to the defensive to the inside over Kerpener, as there's a battle between Emre Cihan and Jack Keithley going on ahead as well. Fiducci looks to try and get himself involved in the team. Footzilla Bentley looking the long way around at the Mercedes-Benz Arena, sliding out a little bit over the curb, as we can see there's a response from Kerpener on the inside of turn 3, but can't quite get the overlap required. We'll have the runner speed out the exit of turn 4. But not quite going to be able to do anything with it in this instance. So already the race feeling more alive than the sprint race.
I was about to say that Högfeldt and Krippner, you could not keep them 2 apart in this round of the championship, that's for sure. They were together pretty much all the way through race number 1, and race 2 at the start here found themselves together once again. But Fiducci taking advantage of the move that Krippner had made, and was saying, thank you very much, I'll take your place and I'll have it for keepsies, thank you very much, to the NGK chicane. So Krippner now, he'll be thinking, oh, what do I have to do to get past? Speaking of getting past, Brzezinski and Rashal further back, duking it out through the chicane, and those 2 did go 2 wide through the NGK chicane, which we've not been seeing too much this evening.
Yeah, they did, and well, things getting very close for P3 out there, because Kevin Siggy feeling the need to go defensive, but we see Pejic just send it down the inside. Has he overcommitted though? Has Siggy got the response coming off the corner? He has to go the outside through turn 2 and coming into turn 3 as well. Careful with the runoff, elbows out, shoving him to the inside as Hasser decides to take a avoidance, but it becomes an opportunity in towards turn number 4 as he gets the drive off the corner on the outside. They can push a little wider on there, around there than you expect, as they'll continue on the battle down into the next set of corners. We've got ourselves Hasse continuing to try and keep his elbows out, keep everyone behind him. Look at how much time is lost to his teammates ahead. They're about a second and a half behind now, as Hasse is trying to keep the FUD behind him.
It certainly is, having to make that the widest McLaren out there on the track, and doing a good job of it. I was going to say on the opening lap that Siggy got caught out at the start. He got caught napping a little bit at the start, and that's what dropped him down a couple of places, and he's just since gone backwards a little bit in this race. He'll want to try and just settle the car, settle the move down the field, and try and look forwards rather than looking backwards. You can see that front two, from the battling that Hasse was having with Page and Siggy, front two have just walked away. There goes Page to the inside.
Page, another attempt. He gets it stopped this time around as Hasse has to push out all the way wide. For some reason, maybe he was thinking that Page was going to take more space than he did. Well, you forgive him for thinking that if he thought it was going to be a repeat of the previous lap. But Emre Can sticking his nose in, trying to get something done here. He'll get the speed off the corner as well. That's a great little run from the Mercedes over the McLaren now. Hasse, can he stem the bleeding here, because he's caught offline, and we know how so easily you can get freight trains here, especially coming through the middle section of this lap. Chian continuing to try and rob this P5 away. Look at that, they're leaning on each other through the left-hander there as they start to descend the hill towards Adrian Boga, and it's Emre Can gaining the place, and Hasse doesn't have a lot of momentum either, because here comes Jack Keithley now. He's going to get himself up into 6th place, and I wouldn't be surprised if Högfeldt tries his chance as well. On the way up and towards the NGK chicane, not quite got the overlap. Hasse's back in line, but it's at a major cost.
I think Hasse is trying to gain himself some paint samples for maybe painting his sim racing room. Because with the amount of rubbing that he was doing that Ford Zilla car and on the Williams Esports car, pit lane and the pit cycle is open. So those drivers that you saw taking to the pit lane were gambling on making it nicely in time to their pit stall so it wouldn't end up catching themselves out. So we've got a few on pit lane here, and this is where the strategy now comes into play. Isaac Price is having an awful time out there. I'm not surprised he's taking the pit stop straight away, because we normally see him go long. Everybody else though on pit lane, Kripner, that's a crucial one out of that battle for 9th and 10th place, because he was right up there with them, and he's trying that different strategy.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't blame him, because we saw a handful of cars at the very back of that train where everyone was getting backed up because of the battling. A couple of drivers deciding to come down in. That keeps them out of danger, because if there's an incident ahead, they won't get caught up in it. But also, if they decide to continue on the battle, they'll be running in clear air. The rest of the competitors will be fighting amongst themselves. They'll be gaining a whole bunch of time as a result of that. So you can see the thought processes from the drivers that have come down in this early. Speaking of coming down in early, Page 1 lap after to try and respond to everything going on behind him.
Yeah, he'll have got a call from a teammate, engineer, whatever he has in place to just support him there. And it'll be a case of, right, we'll take the pit stop now. Second lap into the pit stop window. The front two, they're going to have to pay attention to what Page is doing there, because he can run with the pace of these two. So they're going to have to be careful and maybe think of pitting at the end of this lap as well.
Yeah, it might basically cause the vast majority of the field to come down in before the halfway point here, potentially. Just as is the way of things here. Here's Marco Page heading his way out of the pit lane now. The first driver that's, or at least the driver that's furthest ahead that came down in that last time, potentially Gianmarco Ducci is the sort of baseline that we're looking at here, as well, Page out well ahead of him.
Yeah, so it's Florian Hasse as well, who we saw battling with Fiducci a little bit earlier on. So Hasse able to stay ahead for the time being, but it's those further up now. We're looking to that front half of the field. Pretty much half of the field have made their pit stops now.
Yep, that's the situation. The front grouping, though, staying out there just for a little while longer. Of course, Loner and Bunky, they have a little bit more breathing room with regards to their strategy, given the about a second and a half advantage they gained over the pack fighting behind them. So they have a little bit more leeway just to push it another couple of laps before they'll have to come down on towards the pit lane to get their scheduled service done. But the complexion of this race changes somewhat. We got ourselves Christopher Högfeldt down on towards the pit lane now as well. Of course, he gained actually quite a bit out of the initial start to the race. He qualified, I think it was down in P13. He got himself up to P8 or P7 if I remember correctly. And now on pit lane, getting his service done. Where's he going to come out in relation, not necessarily to Page, but of course the pack that was behind Page that came down in. So Fiducci, Yayovsky, Kribner, that sort of situation there. Högfeldt is wanting to be as close as, if not in the thick of things here. And well, he's going to come out actually pretty well. He's going to slot in behind Fiducci here. There we go. And his battle behind between Yayovsky and Kribner as Kribner sends one down and in. Both of them push very wide, 3 wide, coming off the corner as Marner looks to try and get stuck in here. He's going around the outside at turn 2, now in towards turn 3, immediately into the battle after that pit stop phase there. Marner squeezes towards the inside for turn 4, gets the drive off the corner as well. That's fantastic stuff there as we see these guys head their way through. We do have, I think it is driver
Bunky
on pit lane. Yeah, it is Ben Sparky coming down in.
Yeah, and you saw Barner there just be like, thank you very much, I'm taking that position. Yeah. Bang, get out my way into turn number 4. That was quite aggressive and forceful racing, and that allowed Dornaden to get ahead of Kribner as well through all of that. So Kribner losing out, going from attack to defence in the space of 5 corners and losing out, unfortunately. That's how things can really just change through a series of corners here at the Nürburgring. Here we are then, Pajic and Banky. Now, Banky was in second place when he came onto pit road. Will Pajic be able to jump in with the fresher tyres? No, is the answer.
And well, Keithley coming off the pit lane now, just out behind Hasser. He might try to search for it late on the brakes into there, but with cold tyres, probably not recommended, as he'll have to release that position to Hasser. Slots himself in between Hasser and Fiducci though, but being behind Hasser is not necessarily what Keithley would have wanted at this stage, considering Hasser's habit of backing everyone up, at least in that first stint.
Yeah, he certainly was holding people behind. Now, the interesting thing for me is the amount of time that Banky was able to get out ahead of Florian Hasser. So that's the... not Florian Hasser, of Pajic, should I say. That really is telling to me that the undercut isn't actually being that strong here today. Siggy now onto pit road.
Which is why you're feeling that these leaders, Loner and Visnews, well, Loner in particular, can just continue out there, just continue to log laps. If what you say is true there, Paul, it, again, gives him more options, gives him a little bit of thinking time before he'll commit to whichever lap he wants to come down on towards the pit lane on. So Siggy getting his service done there. There's Ben Swanky out there for the moment. Emre Chian also decided to come down on towards the pit lane. So here comes Kevin Siggy then. Marco Pajic has already gone by and has come out securely ahead of Kevin Siggy there. Emre Chian, well, he's straight into a battle with Hasser. Hasser swings by in that McLaren, and Chian, well, that one didn't exactly go to plan, did it?
And also, Hasser is on warm tyres now. His tyres are up to temperature and pressure. Chian, fresh out the pit lane. You still got to work those tyres a little bit to get them into the right operating window. So he wouldn't have been up to speed through that arena section. I would imagine by the end of the lap. Lerner's in. The race leader is into pit road. He's decided now is the perfect time to pit.
Yeah, so, Lerner, we'll see where this gets him out in relation to everyone else. But of course, he'll have a few laps fresher tyres compared to everyone else for the rest of the race. Wisniewski remains out there though, same with Brzezinski, so the two Polish drivers from Williams Esports continuing out there with Rudinger and Leonard Karten. So those drivers have decided, those four have decided that they want to go at least one more lap here. Here's Moritz Lohner heading his way out of the pit lane then. There is Bence Barnke in the Door Esports Bentley, and Lohner is out securely ahead of his teammate there. So that it has worked out in his favour, and now we can try and start pulling away from everyone once those tyres come up to the right operating window. I'm just flicking my way back through the field here because I saw the train involving Hassan Shian, Keithley, Fabucci. It's getting a little bit sketchy on the way in towards the T1.
Oh, Lutovsky getting a drive-through penalty, so speeding on pit road. It's so easily done. I've done it myself here at the Nürburgring. It is so easily done. You're keen to get out, or even get onto pit road. You just miss the timing, and before you know it, you've been caught speeding, and you've got to serve that penalty. So he's going to find himself pretty much at the back of the field in this one, but 4 drivers yet to pit. Moritz Lohner very, very strong position right now, a second of Bence Barnke.
Yeah, it is looking like a very textbook race for Moritz Lohner. Of course, we are about 1 minute away from the halfway point. We've gotten almost all the pit stops done already. That's with everyone just deciding to come down in as, well, maybe not as quickly as possible, but definitely before the halfway point. Wisniewski, Brzezinski, Rudinger, the ones that are committed to it right now as we see Karten down on towards the pit lane. So it seems like the BMWs in particular continuing out there. It's 3 cars that are BMWs that have remained out there for the moment, and hoping that they have a little bit of a better tyre life than the rest of the manufacturers, and maybe they can charge it later at the latter part of the race. But again, it's not looking at all likely, is it?
I think the fact that they were so far back from Moritz and the leaders that they're not really going to be making a charge for the podium positions, but certainly if they can make this work and get themselves a good final stint, get themselves into the pit road, get their tyres and fuel done, and then get themselves back out, they could maybe be fighting for some crucial points paying positions. Speaking of drivers on pit road, there's Jacob Brzezinski.
So Brzezinski is in, and then there were 2 still out there, Wisniewski and Rudinger. So Brzezinski, it'll be interesting to see where he comes out in relation to everyone here, because of course main aim gets relatively near this battle for P8 and back involving Hassan Shian, Keithley, Fabucci, Högfeldt. But whether or not that's going to be a reality, well, it still remains to be seen. So you can see the Door Esports cars go by on the pit straights as Brzezinski takes that long trundle down towards the cones. So he's behind Shian, behind Keithley, behind Högfeldt, behind Yayovsky potentially. Yes, he is behind Yayovsky. So Brzezinski slots in behind Yayovsky ahead of Barner, P13 at the moment. And well, fresh tyres at the last 14 minutes. Could start to have a little bit of fun here if he has the performance.
Yeah, and that's the crucial thing, if he has that performance edge over people. So we'll keep an eye on how Jacob gets on there. But yeah, right now, pretty much things have stabilised and got themselves into a rhythm. 30 minutes, it doesn't seem that long really, does it, for a race around here. You talk about endurance races, we usually talk a minimum of an hour as your final 2 come on to pit road, then with Wisniewski and Rudinger. So 2 pit stops being made finally for those 2. So Moritz, I would imagine, will be nice and comfortably in the lead, and I don't think he's really pushing that hard. I think he's just keeping a good race pace and just managing that gap back to Bence Barnke.
Yeah, and I don't think he should be too necessarily worried about Bence Barnke as well, considering, well, they're not immediate teammates because there's multiple Door Esports affiliated teams in this championship, but at least in terms of the Esports umbrella, they are the same team, just they're not the same team for points purposes over the course course of this race. So it's because it's Lohner and Hasse in the two McLarens that are technically teammates, and Mark is involved in a different team in that situation. So everyone coming down on towards the pit lane now. We've actually had no retirements in this race so far, believe it or not. Everyone within the same 35 seconds, down to Latowski at the very back in the Mercedes. So that is good to see. Like, no one has decided to call it quits from this race just yet.
And that's what we want to see. That's what we like to see, is that the entire grid finish these races, because it gives us plenty of opportunities to show some battling all the way down the field. Lerner has been able to pull out that gap now to 1.5, 1.6 seconds over Banki, and then a little bit further back to Page. Right now, we're looking at this battle of Chian and Keithley. Keithley, he'll want to move up some more places, because 7th place, it's all right in terms of the points, but he's battling people like Bence Banki in the championship. Banki's had not a bad round, but not spectacular in the first race. Second race has really been his. Keithley, he'll be looking to maybe get past Hasse and Chian in this one to at least get himself 5th place points right now, because Högfeldt 10th place. As far as I'm aware, I believe it was 11th that he started at Högfeldt in this race. So it's a points gathering exercise for Christopher.
Brzezinski started to pick up the aggression, I suppose, coming up to the final 10 minutes here. Of course, he was one of those drivers that came down in super late, tried to push out that first stint as much as possible, and now he's reaping the benefits of having the better rubber on the car. And now it's all about the execution, isn't it? It's Johan Jajowski for P11, that's the first target. Then further down the field, potentially Högfeldt and Wisniewski and Fiducci a little bit further down the order. But the first hurdle is Jajowski, and let's see how well Jajowski deals with this pressure, considering the difference in the performance between the two cars. Not expecting the move into the NGK. It's more down in towards turn number 1, where Brzezinski, with those better tyres, will be able to get a slightly better drive off the final corner to make that happen.
And that's the key there. With that fresher rubber, you're absolutely spot on there, Connery. Being able to get the drive out the corner. Don't be too close to the rear of the car in front going through that corner, because you want to be able to carry that long run. And look at that, straight away on the defensive is Jajowski. Down towards turn number 1. Careful not to make 2 moves across the track there. Through. He's still got the nose in there, so he's got the inside for turn 2. Jajowski's a little bit wider. Still nothing between the two of them, but Jajowski stays ahead. Goes deep in 3 though. That's the opportunity for Brzezinski. Get the cut back here through 4 perhaps to get the inside for the next corner. That's beautifully done. And Jacob, little tip of the hat to you there. He was patient. He forced the mistake from Jajowski and gets himself up into 11th.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where you might not get what you want first time of trying, but you've rattled the cage of the driver ahead of you, and all of a sudden they make a mistake into the next corner, which is maybe a corner you weren't intending to try and get past that, but you'll take everything you get in this one, and Brzezinski very thankful for that position. Just a couple of extra points to his tally. Looking a little bit further up, Chian continuing to come under a sizable amount of pressure from Jack Keithley behind. Keithley is the meat in a Fordzilla bread sandwich at the moment, because he's got Sheehan ahead of him, he's got Fiducci behind, and well, that's never a situation you want to be in between 2 teammates, because they can play some shenanigans.
They certainly can. Emre Can will be looking for a really good result here. I think he's now adapted himself to this championship, of course, as you mentioned earlier, Connery, earning that right to race in this year's ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship through the winning the GT4 support series that we had last season. So yeah, Emery finding his feet now in this championship, and it's helping with that balanced performance here at the Nürburgring, suiting his car to be up there challenging for decent point scoring positions. But Jack Keithley, he will want by. There's no doubt about that. He will want to get past to try and get as many points over Christopher Högfeldt As things stand, Bence Banki is going to actually be the nearest contender to Högfeldt out of this round.
Yeah, of course, Högfeldt, I'm not expecting him to lose the championship at the end of the day. That would be a bit excessive, but the gap will just tighten up just that little bit more with Banki gaining all those points, especially from P2 finish here in race 2. Of course, Lohner will leap up the up the driver's standings from a double race win here today. So we'll see how far up the order he can get himself. Wisniewski now sending one down the inside of Fiducci. Fiducci looking for the cutback underneath. That's the usual done thing here through turn number 1 to try and defend. You've seen the outside for turn 3 though, which is not ideal. Turn 2 and turn 3, which is not ideal. But again, you can cause that driver on the inside to overcommit. You're getting a little bit of deja vu here. Wisniewski's recovered it quite well though, and Fiducci's still going to have a big task ahead of him to try and get past for P8 here, and he's not clear down into the right hand of that cut through compared to the full layout.
Look at the difference between Fiducci there this lap and Brzezinski the lap before that. So you can see just the difference there and just not quite working out for. But that's the beauty of that opening sector of the lap. You can switch position almost 3-4 times just through the first 4 corners. It's a great series of corners, and I used to like the old chicane that was on the Grand Prix layout before they built this Mercedes arena. This really does work and give people this nice wide area. It gives people plenty of lines and plenty of opportunities to make moves.
Yep, it does, and it's certainly one of the better sequences of corners at any racetrack. I mean, I'm actually, it might be a little bit controversial, but I'm actually a big fan of that slow-speed sector through at Ota, the middle sector there. That's actually pretty fun, actually, for me. I don't know why, but it's
after
pretty
turn
fun.
12, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It really is a challenge. You put a lot of emphasis on the mechanical grip of cars through that sector, and it's the same with this opening sector here. You put a lot into how you set up your springs, dampers, your anti-roll bars, how the car handles through that first sector can really help you out in making those moves. So yeah, it's those low-speed sectors. You gain more time from low-speed corners than the high-speed stuff that all the drivers enjoy.
Yeah, and when it comes to battles through those sections, it's again a very much flip-flopping affair. It's advantage one way, but the next corners are going a different way, so the advantage just keeps on switching like that, and it's really fun to watch. But and like I said, to relate back to this, that's what Mercedes-Benz Arena offers a lot of the time in these sorts of races. But let's have a little bit of a recap of the situation. With less than 4.5 minutes to go, we've got Maurice Lohner now 3 seconds ahead of his closest competitor down in P2. So that is an incredible gap that Lohner's been able to pull out. Spunky second place, Page third, Siggy fourth, and Hasse in fifth. It's been a good round for Siggy, even though it was a bit of a struggle at the very start of race 2. He's still maintained the top 5 position, which is good to see, and will help him out in terms of the points in the championship. Well, having a look further down the order, of course, things still getting relatively close. Now Brzezinski's on the back of Högfeldt here, so it spells a little bit of trouble for Högfeldt. Of course, he's on damage control mode for both of the races here today. But again, going down to P11, that's another handful of points that, he can technically lose at this point, but certainly can't lose too many more.
Yeah, I mean, if he went down to 11th, it would go from 14 to 12 points for Högfeldt in terms of what he's gained in this race. Högfeldt, of course, finished race 1 in, 9th place. Brzezinski, fresher rubber, saw him take that late pit stop, but the initial advantage over the others will have gone by now, so this is more just that how he's managed the car, how he's managed the tyres going into the final part of this race. So Högfeldt will want to defend, but he won't want to potentially get himself involved in an instant, and there he goes, Brzezinski to the outside. You can make that work. You carry the speed there, gives you the inside for 2 and 3. That's nicely done, but don't write out Högfeldt from this one yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Diving to the inside through turn 3. Högfeldt's got the elbows out, and they'll continue it through turn 4. Högfeldt gets the runner speed around the outside. Maybe has to back out a little thing, out of things a little bit, going across the runoff like that. Still having to hang it out to dry around the outside, and well, that's where Brzezinski can come back at him and capitalize. It was a great little fight, great response from Högfeldt, but in the end, the fresher rubber reigns supreme, and Brzezinski scores the position up into P10. Careful with the blind, though, coming through the right-hander.
He wasn't giving that one up without a fight, was he, Christopher? That was real elbows out stuff there, and manages to only lose that one place. But what that's done is bring Erhan Yuliovsky into that battle. Now we know how aggressive a driver Yuliovsky can be here. So again, BMW versus BMW here. You've got to be careful if you're a Högfeldt and not get freight trained here. I think he has steadied the ship though, and he finds himself in 11.
Yeah, so still positions on the cards if in case things go a little wrong at least ahead of Yuliovsky. We are keeping an eye on battles a little bit further forwards, but it doesn't look like really any of them are going to develop into something significant at the very end of this, unless there's a mistake from someone somewhere. I'm hoping I'm not cursing anyone at the moment. But yeah, it seems like most of the post battles are going to be happening outside the top 10 here for the final couple of laps that we have to run. So let's see where Lona is to see how many laps actually we do get to run. So, okay, he's coming across South Van Bogen now, so he'll be able to get to the line in time, I would have thought. So it should be this little sector and then one more lap to go.
I do want to give a quick mention. Nikodem Wisniewski did not finish race number 1. He's currently in 8th place, so that shows how that second qualifying session could really help you out if you have a bad first race.
Here we go then, across the line for Maurice Lona. One more lap to go with 12 seconds-ish across the line. So Lona very, very comfortable. Very comfortable at the very front, and well, he can just sort of park the bus here at the very end with a 4-second gap. But look at this from behind, though. Keithley and Wisniewski all over the track together. Of course, both of them Williams Esports, so hopefully they don't get themselves into too much of an altercation here. Of course, sometimes you do have to prioritize the Drivers' Championship over a Team's Championship sometimes, but hopefully these guys can have themselves a decent fight here at the very end. About 0.4 of a second between them. There's something developing for P3 between Pajic and Siggy that has crept in a little bit here on the final lap. Maybe Siggy trying to push on a little bit, trying to get himself onto the podium at the end of race number 2. And Pajic looks like he's struggling just a little bit.
If he holds his lines, he should be fine to the end of the race. Kevin Siggy, though, is pushing him hard. We have seen fuel be an issue, don't forget, and I think that might be the case here.
Oh no, is Pajic out? Is Pajic out of fuel? He's trying to nurse the car back to the finish. He'll potentially lose the position here to Florian Hasse as well. Huge, huge drama here at the end of race number 2 in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, the endurance race here at the Nürburgring. Moritz Lohner picks up the double race win here today, but all the drama is happening behind him. Pajic, he's crawling. He's crawling through the final corner. He's on fumes here, Paul, and look at how many positions he's losing.
Oh, that's an absolute nightmare, and well, all those other drivers will be thinking, that's a freebie. Can he keep it on the clutch? It's uphill. It's uphill, is this last little bit? It's just a crest. Can he make it? I don't think he will.
Oh no, he's trying to get it going, he's just creeping. Oh, he's going to get some help. He's going to get some help from behind. Someone's going to try and push him across the line, but it's not possible here. It seems that hasn't quite worked from Marko Pajic. Someone's trying to help him. Might have been Jonas Vanna, but that is tragic. Unofficial race results, everyone. Moritz Lohner, double race win, has kind of been upstaged a little bit by that finish further behind. All credit where credit's due, though. Lohner taking the double race win here today. Ben Spanky P2, great points haul for him. We've got Kevin Siggy, third place in the at the final standings here. So he was able to get himself up onto the podium. Of course, because that's what Pajic was having fuel issues at the end. So it was a surprise podium for Kevin Siggy. Florian Hasse P4, Emery Chian P5, Jack Heathley, then Wisniewski, then Fedici, then Brzezinski, then Högfeldt rounds out the top 10 of things here today. As we'll let ourselves run through that standard P20. Jajowski, Barner, Dorniden, Rudinger, Kripner, Yarshall, Rushel, and Gasner, Price, Pfeiffer running out the top 20. And then at the very back, we got Pinches, Bitvote, Dinya, Otviani, Kunze, Latowski, Vanna, Pajic, Carton running up the 29 hours. I don't know what else to say, Paul. I don't know what else to say.
I've seen it time and again, not just in esports but also in the real world, how you try and push that fuel limit right to the edge at the end there, and that was it's heartbreak for Pajic. He'd done everything right. He got a third place in race number 1, misses out on it because he didn't have about half a lap's worth of fuel at the end there, and I think he realised a little bit too late to do anything major about that.
That was, that was crazy, and we've seen it before. We never think of it as a thing, though. We don't come into these races just thinking, oh, make sure you have the fuel till the end. Make sure you put enough fuel in at the pit stop, and if you do underfuel it, make sure you get your fuel numbers right. But that situation that is very, very rare to happen, and Pajic has
especially
just completely
at this level.
Yeah, Pajic just completely miscalculated the situation there. Yeah, I'm glad you spotted it there, Paul. I mean, I saw the gap coming down, so I think Pajic thought that there might be trouble on the horizon and was just trying to back it down just to make sure he can get to the checkered flag. But that's why the gap to Siggy came down by such a huge margin at the very end there. But I wasn't expecting it was that. That was...
We've seen it, though, in previous rounds, haven't we, about how people have been pushing it. We've seen how close the gaps are in this championship, how tight the field is in terms of overall lap time. Even a litre of fuel can make a little bit of difference to those drivers and their times out there. And it's that last litre which has cost Pajic a podium finish there. He got a podium in race 1, let's not forget that. But a double third place today has been lost. What it does mean, though, is Kevin Siggy, great result for him. He's had not the best of seasons. He'll be first to admit that. 6th and a 3rd place here today.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, we'll have to pump the brakes on that a little bit because we need to talk more about Moritz Lohner because he got himself the pole position award here at the Nürburgring. So we've had 3 different pole position sitters for second races so far this season. So that's Högfeldt, Keithley, and Lohner so far. And the good news keeps on coming for Moritz Lohner because he also got himself the fastest lap award here from motorsport.com. So that's fantastic stuff there from Moritz, and well, it gets himself a bit of bonus money, doesn't it? It gets him. I'm just gonna double check the amount here, but of course there is a bonus cash prize for the fastest lap of the race, and
$250, isn't it?
Euros. Yeah, indeed it is. Indeed it is. So there we go, 250 euros for the fastest lap here. I do have the rule book to hand, don't worry. But yeah, Moritz Lohner, a bit of a payday for him as well.
Not bad, considering that he's had such a bad opening to the championship, and he pretty much wrote off Watkins Glen. He was helping his teammates qualify. He didn't put lap times in at all in either of the qualifying sessions last time out at Watkins Glen. So yeah, Moritz Lohner, certainly a good day at the office here. He'll be hoping the next round is pretty similar for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, for a first so far this season, we can actually get an interview with Moritz Lohner. I'll drag him into the commentary booth here. He's hopped into our server, which is not the official server, but we'll just ignore that. Moritz, What an incredible event for you, especially given that the first two races of the season, or rather, first four races, but first two events of the season didn't exactly go your way. I think it's mostly down to the McLaren not being too handy at those circuits. But finally, you get yourself a track where the McLaren's good, and you capitalize on it the best you can with pole positions. So you got 2 race wins. It couldn't have gone much better.
Yeah, it was really difficult for me, also motivation-wise, to keep going after the first 2 rounds where the McLaren was really not good or like unexpectedly bad. We did some BOP testing at the start of the season, and it was rather good. But after 2 weeks of grinding, we found out that the McLaren is really, really bad at like really fast turns. And Brands Hatch and Watkins Glen had plenty of those, so there was it was really difficult for me there to go on pace. But then finally Nürburgring, a track that I actually don't really like, but always been really successful at it. And it was the last, or like the first hope for me to get something going with the McLaren. I immediately noticed in the practice sessions that the pace was alright, or the pace was more than alright. Like winning pace was there. So even though motivation was really low for the series itself, I thought to myself that like this is the only chance. You have to go for the win now, and it was a perfect, like a clean sweep. Qualifying sessions, all on pole, race all on all one, and also the fastest lap, which is 250 euros. So I take those. But yeah, it was really really good. But I think it's going to get rather dark again for the next couple of races.
Yeah, I was about to come on to that because, of course, it was an interesting choice. I think even you would admit that interesting choice picking the McLaren coming into this round. Of course, you weren't the only one. You have your teammate there as well, of Hasse. What was the thought process actually? Because we haven't gotten to ask you for the first 2 rounds of the season because we haven't been able to do interviews. But what was the thought process picking the McLaren coming into this season? Given that most people went for the BMW. That seemed to be the more obvious choice for everyone else. But what made you pick completely different way?
I was basically like completely my own fault. I was stuck at iRacing for quite a long time and doing the 24 hours of Daytona with Coanda. And exactly at that weekend of the 24 hours, the BOP got released, and we didn't have a lot of time to actually test the cars a lot. And after the 24 hours, I had like 2 days to get into the rhythm of RaceRoom again, and then test every car at pretty much like every track. It was just not possible for me to, get going. But my teammates were practicing, doing some BOP runs, and the McLaren seemed to be all right. Definitely not at Watkins Glen, but it looked all right at like most of the tracks. And for me, I just couldn't get on pace in the 2 days. So for me, it was a pick about which driving style suits me the best. And the McLaren like felt really good at first, but soon after we started practicing for Brands Hatch, I found out that it's like the most difficult car to drive on RaceRoom, and it's really not fast in fast corners, and we predominantly have like a lot of tracks with fast corners this season. So it was just the wrong choice. Yeah, it was lack of commitment for me to do some proper BOP testing. Also, a thought behind it was I wanted to take a different car than most of the other people, just like last year with the Porsche, because you can drive a little bit different in the races, go for some overtakes, which wouldn't really work if you're in the same car. But yeah, McLaren definitely wasn't the best pick. Maybe I'm wrong about the next tracks, and it will also perform really well there. And I can get some wins and good positions, and actually get maybe back into the championship fight. But it's gonna be incredibly tough, and I don't really think I can play a part in the championship anymore.
All right, Paul, do you have anything to ask our 3-time champion that's got himself a double race win for the first time in 2022?
I mean, first of all, true professional in saying that he'll take the 250 euros. So that was very, very pro driver s. But the next few rounds, you say it's going to be a bit dark. Is this where being that professional, it's some of the harder days where it's a case of, right, we just got to turn up, get the best that we can out of this, and try and grind a result. Is that a bit of a mentality rather than focusing on the win, just getting the best that you can out of a result?
Yeah, it's difficult because obviously you're not motivated to practice at all. You're not motivated to keep going in the championship anymore. But I have a team around me that are really good in the championship right now. I think Bence is leading it,
Mm.
if I'm correct.
Not yet.
And
Not yet, but he's getting closer.
all right, very nice. So I'm there for my team, like especially at Watkins Glen. You saw it that I
Mm.
was like 100% helping my team and sacrificing my own qualifying in my own race. So I'm pretty much there for my team right now. Let's see, maybe there's really something possible in the next few races, and motivation is coming back, and I go for some more wins. But it's tough to get going, definitely. Luckily, I have another championship right now, the DTM, in which I'm
Yeah.
really good right now as well. Going for the championship there, of course. But being a three-time champion, it's not easy to lose races because you're such like you're just in the rhythm of winning races and winning championships that it's like yeah, not really the best feeling to be at the back of the grid. So today was yeah, was a really good confidence boost.
Well, if you need any tips about being at the back of the grid, I've got plenty of experience of that myself. So,
I'll come back to that.
but thank you, Moritz.
Yeah, thank you very much, Moritz, and we wish you the best of luck in your next races, not only in this championship but others as well. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was Moritz Lohner, double race winner from the Nürburgring, showing that the McLaren can actually punch above its weight sometimes, and getting a whole good points haul in this one. I can actually show you the updated points for today. So Christopher Högfeldt does still lead, but by a significantly reduced margin. It is Ben Sabanki in P2, so 190 points for Högfeldt, 160 points for Ben Sabanki. So that's yeah, come down by
35
quite a
points.
bit. Yeah,
Compared to 49 at the start of this evening. So, you
Yeah.
know, Ben Spanky has really given his championship hopes a big boost there. What he needs now is Christopher Högfeldt to have another round like today.
Yeah, another round where the BMW is not working for him, another round where he's perhaps not able to get a good qualifying performance. You know, those are all options here. Jack Heathley there, P3, so still maintaining that third place despite the trials and tribulations that he's been through over the course of these previous two races. Yajowski fourth place, Wisniewski in fifth place, and then it starts to get a little bit tighter from there on back, because Brzezinski's only a point behind Wisniewski, so the two Williams Esports teammates in terms of esports team, but of course they're classified as two different teams here, with the Williams by RHG for Wisniewski and Williams Esports for Brzezinski. Then you've got a couple of points behind. You got Moritz Lohner. So for Moritz, when he was down towards the bottom of the order at the start of today, now he's launched himself all the way up into P7 with a double race win. Fiducci 8th, Siggy 9th, and Isaac Price rounding out the top 10 in points pool.
Yeah, and that's somebody that we barely talked about today is Isaac Price. What an awful round for him. He was at the bottom end of the top 20 in both races here today. So, I mean, that he won't be happy with that performance. Kevin Tiggy getting a couple of good results here today, but I do think that it's that top four, right? Top three, should I say, sorry, that we really need to focus on into the second half of the season. Those three are the main contenders in my eyes.
Yeah, I think so too. We're starting to see the championship picture develop now. We've gotten the first 3 rounds of the season under our belts. We've got another 3 rounds coming up. So we've gotten ourselves a good picture of what potentially might be the picture at the end, and potentially who might be the challengers. So you think it's Högfeldt, Bunky, and Keithley? Of course, things can still change a little bit between now and the very end of the season, but that's what I put my money on as well. Those 3 battling it out for the top spot at the end of the season. And, well, I certainly can't wait for it. We have in terms of the calendar, of course, let's have another little look at that, because in a couple of weeks' time, we are heading to Zandvoort. So the track on the Dutch coast, in and amongst a whole bunch of sand dunes. It's going to be an intriguing one, of course. Of course, we do have I think we have one Dutch driver in the field, that's Vitvoet. And he typically has done quite well in there. He did quite well in one of the shootout races, actually, coming into the season. So Zandvoort might potentially be one that's in his wheelhouse for sure. But it's always an intriguing track, isn't it? It's a very much considered a classic track. And so therefore, there's not a lot of room to maneuver if you decide to go offline. For example, here at the Nürburgring with the redone, in the GP layout, it's a relatively recent track. In all honesty, is the GP layout. So it's like it's still got those considerable runoffs. But if you go off at Zandvoort, well, you've got about a few meters until you hit an Amco barrier.
Well, it's that, but also it's extremely difficult to overtake at Zandvoort. Realistically, the only opportunities into Tarzan at turn number 1 or into turn number 4 is where you're going to see any overtaking realistically around there, because it's not the best for overtaking. We saw that last season in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. These 2 rounds back to back we had last season. So the majority of the grid have experience of racing around here, and they'll know that qualifying will be absolutely key going into that next round.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. So, of course, we will have to wrap things up there. In 2 weeks' time, we will be heading to round number 4 of the season in the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, powered by EnBW Mobility Plus as well. Thank you very much for their support. We head to Zandvoort. We head to the Netherlands for round number 4 of the championship. You certainly don't want to miss it as we race in and amongst the sand dunes there. But for now, we will have to say goodbye.